Welcome back to the Valiant Few Podcast. I am your host, Slapshot.
Raptor is here.
Crossfire's here.
And we have some co-hosts here as well.
Hi, I'm Blackbeard.
Oh, that was good.
Special guest on the show,
Panther.
And I'm Ontor.
So I think a good thing to do would probably be to do some background on our special guests here. That way you know who they are going forward.
Spent 16 years in the military, 3.5 with the 82nd Airborne, and I'm currently in law enforcement.
Alright, Ontor.
I'm a IT background, currently work in the telecommunications industry.
Alright, so you know who our people are going forward.
Alright, so we're going to kick off as the order goes with our podcast. We're going to start off with the Third Amendment. Not a whole lot here, but, we figure we should include all the amendments equally, so let's start off with the Third Amendment.
So let's pull up the Third Amendment on here so we can read it
Word for word as stated.
Here you go. Alright, so the Third Amendment reads, "No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law."
So that basically means the army or military can't just show up at your house and say, "Hey, we're taking this for tonight," for whatever reason, whether that be peacetime or at war.
Yeah, it's pretty clearly written, and a lot of people don't really think about why it was done, because we think nowadays there's war. We always think of foreign wars. For the most part, you're like, oh yeah, well, someone's going to war. It's like, oh yeah, they're probably going to the Middle East, or they're probably going to some country on like a relief mission or something like that that's never here. But think about when this was written. That's back when we still had the Continental Army and stuff like that, and we still had a real threat from the British. And when they had to move troops around, there was no real infrastructure set up like there is now to house these troops. Nowadays, we have different barracks places if they need to move around, and there's this whole giant infrastructure. But back then, it's like, oh yeah, well, we need troops in West Virginia or whatever, and it's like, oh yeah, there's no barracks here, so we're stealing your house.
And their supply chains weren't nearly as quick and stuff.
They weren't defined like they are. Yeah.
Back when this was written, even before the revolution and everything, what would happen is the Continental or the King's Army would come in, and you would have to house them in your house and provide them room and board, because there was no law enforcement back then either. So for the king to enforce his laws upon the colonists, he had to have his army there, and then they could walk into anybody's house at any time and say, "We're staying here."
Well, I wouldn't even say that there was no law enforcement. That was the law.
Exactly.
Because this is pre United States here, when people, it's like, oh yeah, well, these guys here technically are part of the military that's governing your country. Again, pre United States, and they just show up. It's like, yep, eminent domain, essentially.
Yeah.
So I think that transitions good into talking about how it is in other countries and through your story.
Yeah. So in Iraq, we actually did this to people. So when I was there during the surge from 06 to 07, so our mission statement was to go out there, be seen, do presence patrols, do raids, go fight the bad guys. So we did 3-day missions, 2-day missions, all this other time. We'd try to bait the enemy to come out and into a fight with us. So we'd walk into the city, choose a house at random, and kick everybody out of the house and say it's ours for the night, and stay there and set up security and try to have somebody come fight us. So we did this to other people. So in our country, it's very important that this amendment's there. It's cut and dry. There's not a lot to talk about, but it's a very important amendment to where if something were to happen in our country, your right is there. Our government cannot come into your house and house what's called in law enforcement agents of the government. So,
or as written, quartering
or
troops.
without your consent.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, without your consent. Because on here it says without your consent. Because I know some people be okay with housing
Oh,
troops
yeah,
for whatever reason. Either they're generous people or they have the room for it. It's like, hey, we're here fighting. Then, oh, sure, you can stay in the basement here. You can stay in our guest room or something like that, which explicitly gives a clause for, without the consent of the owner. So that it could still happen. But back to what you were saying earlier, what it means today.
Mm-hmm.
We already have this huge infrastructure set up with multiple different barracks. Like even in like just a county of a state, there's a plethora.
National Guard and Reserve.
The National Guard on top of that, yeah.
Yep.
So there's a whole entire infrastructure. And as Raptor, as you said earlier, you already have all these supply chains set up, and you have all that allow this to basically. This becomes kind of antiquated, but it's there still to enforce that. Otherwise, there would probably be like, oh well, we don't need this here anyway because we can just bust into this guy's house.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is the only amendment that talks about the military-civilian relationship too. I found so.
Is it really?
Yeah, I guess that's
Yes.
important to know as well.
Oh, that's interesting. Actually, I didn't know that.
But I guess this kind of relates with privacy too, because the Army's a government body, and this is kind of like a deal with privacy in the civilian life too.
So I think this actually has some important thing to it. What do you have the year that this was ratified? Actually,
Would have been whenever the.
is it 1789 or slightly after? It's got to be. I'm thinking it's somewhere around there because there's another point I want to make with that ties into what you just said.
It was.
I'm guessing somewhere around there. Maybe by the time, at least
It was the only amendment to be repealed.
it was repealed.
Yes, in
Interesting.
it was repealed by the 21st Amendment on December 5th, 1933.
Oh, so it doesn't apply anymore. Wait, no.
Let's pull up that.
Yeah, let's pull up that amendment.
Yeah. So what amendment was it? You said
21st. The final amendment.
I thought the 21st Amendment was was prohibition.
Yeah.
That's
No, it's the
19, I
19th
think.
and 20th.
Yeah, and I thought the 19th or the 21st Amendment was overruling prohibition. 21st Amendment. Yeah, the 18th.
That's section 1.
Oh, section 1. Let's see. Importation into any state in the United States, delivery of liquors.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then section 3. Yeah. Yeah, so that's I don't believe that's correct then.
Yeah.
That's just from what I had found.
Yeah, I do not believe that information's correct. Because I was not aware the only amendments that I was aware that had anything like that was the 19th Amendment.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's interesting. But
Figure it out, Blackbeard.
so
Do better.
so Third Amendment.
Numbers, they're hard.
So Third Amendment date. And you'll see why I'm leading into this. Okay, yeah. So the Third Amendment date was proposed on September 28th, 1789. So the reason I was bringing that up is when did the Continental Army get disbanded? Continental Army disband.
1783.
1783.
Most of.
1783. Yeah, so the Continental Army was. So what was the other date? Okay, yeah, so the Continental Army was dissolved before that. I think this
Which
was...
makes sense because the founders, like we talked about last time, really did not like the idea of standing militaries, and at that point we weren't at war with anyone, so the founders disbanded the actual standing army that was used to fight during the Revolution.
And that's the parallel I'm trying to draw here. The whole
Yeah.
reason I went through all that was that now that their standing army's done, they probably reflected back on that, because I mean, this didn't exist before that, and standing army could... I'm pretty sure they went into people's houses because that was just the normal thing to
that
do.
would
Right.
have been, yeah.
And they probably sat there and reflected on it because, of course, as we can...
Well, I know the American people, while they were under British rule, really did not enjoy whenever British soldiers would show up at their house because they would basically treat it like crap and
and trash their house,
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
the biggest thing.
Eat all your food.
They're entitled.
yeah. The British Army definitely had like a chip on their shoulder.
Well, you figure you go into somebody's house, it's not yours. You don't care about it. It's not yours. You can do whatever the hell you want with it, and then just trash it. Do whatever you want.
It's that in
especially a British soldier in that time.
Yeah, at that time, the British Army was the greatest army in the
yeah.
world. So they had that chip on their shoulder to where like we can do whatever we want. What are you gonna do to us?
Yeah, and I think that back then the British Army had I think it was 24% of all land mass. I think it was something. It was a ridiculous thing like that. So that was just normal. And again, to the point I was making is, I think the founders had such tremendous foresight with this kind of stuff. They're probably like, okay, maybe we should probably do something to prevent that.
Yeah,
because I mean the whole Bill of Rights was specifically to prevent and I don't want to say the word arm people because that's more literal than not, but prepare people for things like this and help protect them against it. So that's the point I was trying to make.
It also makes it harder for, like, if a tyrannical government wanted to impose itself on the people, and it was illegal for them to just send troops into into towns and say you're living with these people now, whatever.
Because it'd be a lot easier if it was the other way around. Yeah.
It'd be a lot harder to fight too.
Yeah.
Attention, citizen.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I thought we talked about this a lot longer than I thought we would.
All right, I'm going to start on Panther's story. And so you pretty much walk into these people's houses, tell them, okay, we're coming in here, and you're getting out. Where are you sending these people?
Yeah, in so many words is what we did. We, like I said, it was at random, especially when we did this 3-day mission where we went house to house. It was absolutely at random. We usually tried to pick the nicest houses because they're called sheiks. They're basically their local leaders. And their local leaders are basically just the elders who say, you have this, give me some. They're mobsters is what they are. So they always have the nicest houses, so we take their houses. And what we tell them is, we're staying here, you can't be here while we're here. Find somewhere to stay. And all the women will come outside and cry and yell at us and, why are you taking our houses? And we're like, yeah, whatever, go away. Then we tell them, you can either go to your neighbor's house or a friend's house and stay there, or we're going to zip tie you and put hoods over your head and you can stay in your own room, but you're going to have a guard on you the end. Yeah.
All right, is there a time frame where you're like, okay, we can stay here this long, or is it as long as you need?
It depends on the mission.
That's what I was
especially
thinking,
back in 2006.
Yeah, 2006 was the Wild West. But like the 3-day mission we were on, we were only there for the night. We say, we're here for the night, we'll be moving on in the morning, you can come back. If we're doing a 2-day OP, we'd let them know, hey, we're going to be out here for such and such time. We'd usually overextend or underextend, so they don't have an actual time frame for OPSEC reasons. Come back here this day, and we'll be out of your house. We're not going to destroy your house or anything like that. We were respectful with their stuff, but they could not be there. It's just a security issue. It's a safety risk. So
come back and the whole entire house is completely renovated, splash everywhere.
Oh, God forbid we raided your house. My God, we destroyed those.
So, yeah, but there was nothing saying that, like, okay, we have, like, you can't, there was nothing saying that you, like, if you wanted to stay there for a week, 2 weeks.
We could have took over somebody's house and made it a fire base.
No ifs, ands, buts about it. Just
that's all, what it comes
matter.
down to is there's still a political aspect to that through our chain of command. It's just like we couldn't go search or clear a mosque because there's a religious aspect. But if we took fire from there, or we have surveillance footage of people laying IEDs, and we know there's a weapons cache in that mosque, all we had to do is get clearance from our battalion commander. And be like, hey, 1P6, we have this. He can give us clearance to go into that mosque. So other than that, we'd have to, and what comes into it is what we call this is MET-TC. It's mission equipment, time, terrain, and civilians. That all comes into play when you're choosing anywhere you're going for an observation point, a fire base, anything like that. So if we look at a map and say this is the absolute best spot to put this fire base or an OP up, or we used to do something called small kill teams where we'd go out and set up for a few hours and watch for people to lay IEDs. If we say that's the best spot, We take it to our chain of command. Chain of command clears it, and we go there and like, hey, you just lost your house. They can get reparations for it. We'll pay them for it. They'll get usually whatever they want if that happens. But yeah, we just took people's stuff.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we clarified that because I'm sure that's a question that a lot of people probably have.
Yeah.
Yeah, myself included. I actually didn't. So, I didn't realize that you actually like paid them back and did stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
No, I had no idea. I thought it was
Yeah.
just kind of like, hey, see ya.
But if it was a shorter time frame, like when we're going house to house or send up a quick OP, we wouldn't really pay them. We'd just be like, hey, we're taking your house for the night.
Yeah, I figured if it was like a longer thing, it's like
Longer thing or...
But if it's like a permanent or weeks or a month or something like that, yeah, we'd give them some money or whatever they'd ask for.
I'm sitting here reflecting and it just clicked.
It's usually money.
You accidentally invented Airbnb.
Yeah, basically.
Wow.
Forceful Airbnb.
I'm renting your room. I didn't know we had a room for rent.
You do now.
You do now. Signed U.S. government.
Here's your key.
Oh, where's my keys?
You don't have a key.
Oh, yikes.
Oh, we realize it's a tarp.
Okay. Well, before that gets to
Move on to the next topic here.
But I guess just to wrap up the third, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just an amendment that kind of goes around privacy. So, at least with the U.S. states and citizens,
it's one of those things that gives us a right to privacy that most people not only don't really even think too much about, but probably, I mean, a lot of people probably don't even really realize this exists.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
But obviously it's important, you know.
It definitely feels like one of those ones that when you learn the Constitution in school, that like this one probably doesn't get paid as much attention as some
Definitely,
others.
they glaze over it.
I mean, in education today, I'm sure that they probably don't even talk about the Constitution.
You just ignore this
What do
piece
I
of
know?
paper.
Yeah.
they talk about other things instead.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I guess
We can roll on over to the Fourth Amendment.
yeah.
All right,
So as stated, the Fourth Amendment says, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So
It's kind of a mouthful. That one. I mean, like, you sit there and you're going. It basically means it's like, yeah, nobody has the right to, you know, look or to search your house, search any papers you have, anything on your person, without probable cause or without permission from a body that is underneath oath or affirmation, like it says.
right.
So like that's like someone underneath oath or affirmation would be like some type of law enforcement, some type of court systems, a judge, that nature of things, a magistrate.
I mean, the way that it's written is very, like, it says it is not allowed, and then it goes into saying what makes it, it's very specific on what will allow you to be searched in that instance. Like, kind of like how we've talked about all the other amendments have talked about, they're very clear and concise as to what they mean, and the Fourth Amendment is no different.
Yeah, it's made very personal to each person. Like, it's about the people itself.
Yeah, it's one of the things that actually it's pretty commendable that it's you know, like only a sentence long. It's pretty generic, and at the same time, like what you just said, that you know that this can tailor basically to anybody because it kind of accounts for the situation with it. That's pretty cool, you know.
The biggest thing people don't realize about the Fourth Amendment is that it encompasses so much of your rights to privacy.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of leaning on. That it kind of fits each case.
It covers your privacy in your vehicle, your privacy on your clothing and your bags, your house, what's called curtilage of your house, so your property line. None of that can be searched without what they say in the amendment is probable cause, and what probable cause is, what us as law enforcement have to do is take to a judge and say, this is what we have. I have seen this. I have seen this. I have this evidence. this is my probable cause to get a search warrant of such and such area, and to go seize. And what a search warrant is for is to go seize more evidence to build a case that crime is being committed.
So does probable cause have to be explicitly given by an authority figure like that?
Yes.
What if there is so what if something happens like in the middle of you doing say you're driving by and you happen to see something happen and someone rushes into a house? What happens in that event? Does that grant probable cause?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Yeah. So we'll get into case law as well, but that's covered under the good faith law.
Okay.
It's what's called the Good Faith Act or law. I can't remember. But what it states is an law enforcement officer acted upon good faith to where his presumed life and property is at risk. So when you're watching somebody rush into a house or rush into a car erratically, you can articulate that to where you think somebody's life or somebody's property is in danger and you acted. Now, if you were to come upon anything illegal, some type of contraband, and then in that act, it's covered under that good faith clause.
Because that was something else I was going to ask.
Yeah. So, like, if somebody rushed into a house erratically, let's say the house is even on fire or something like that, right? If you come into the house and it's a small stove fire and you go in there to make sure everybody's out, and as you're walking in that house, you see a pile of cocaine there, you can arrest everybody in that house because everybody in that house is in possession.
Yeah, because there may be just one person that actually it's in possession of it, but everybody else would classify as an accomplice.
Guilty by association.
Basically.
Yeah.
But, and it comes into play too. People have to be within reach of it. But in that case, if nobody wants to cop to it, everybody's getting charged. And you let the court figure it out.
Yeah.
All right, whose was it?
So it even encompasses traffic stops. I, as a police officer, cannot just randomly stop your car. It's covered. You're covered under the Fourth Amendment there. It covers stopping you on the street while you're walking. I can stop you and talk to you, but you can give me the middle finger and say, go F yourself and keep on walking. If I don't have... So there's 3 different types of encounters. So there's a mere encounter, there's investigatory detention, and then there's custodial arrest. A mere encounter is that what I was just talking about. It was me walking up to you, say, hi, how you doing, where you going, and just striking up a conversation with you. I can do that at any time. And at that time, I cannot ask for your identification. That's where the papers come in. Mm-hmm. I can't ask for your identification if you're not a legal citizen. I can't ask for your green card. I can't ask for your social security, any type of identifying information.
That's the identification. Yeah. That's the papers, and I would argue the effects as well. Yeah.
So now, let's say I have a call from the area I'm in. You match the description of the person that may have committed a crime. I can absolutely stop you and ID you.
Because the probable cause is match the description. Now that's
what. So there's another level below probable cause. It's reasonable suspicion. So that encompasses traffic stops, and what the scenario I was just giving you is you fit the description of somebody committed a crime. Let's say it's white male, approximately 5'6" to 6 foot tall, black hair, black t-shirt, gray jeans, and black boots. Right? Mm-hmm. You fit that description perfectly. I can immediately stop you, identify you. If I need to, I feel like you're getting a little angry and erratic, I can put you in handcuffs. Doesn't mean you're under arrest. You're just being detained. Yeah. Until we figure that out, until the investigation is complete. Because either confirm or deny that you're that person that committed that crime.
Yeah, because if someone's being erratic, then that could possibly, I don't want to say the situation's escalating.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Like a de-escalation tactic.
Yep, I can try to do, and being put in cuffs is a de-escalation tactic. If somebody's starting to get yell and you raise their voices at me a lot, instead of me yelling back at them or anything, I'm like, all right, turn around, place your hands behind your back, and put you in cuffs. I'll explain to them. You're not under arrest. You're just being detained because you're getting a little erratic, and I don't want anything to escalate.
Does that normally calm them down right there to the point where you don't have to do that, or do you almost always have to do that?
I'd imagine they get angry at first.
When
I put them in cuffs, they normally start mother effing me and saying this stuff. What I do is I sit them down with my partner or another officer that's with me. I sit them down there and I walk away and talk to another party for a minute.
And let them calm down.
Yeah,
Yep.
and maybe I'm being the asshole at that point right now, but he can talk to my partner for a minute. I go talk to another party. I'll come back. I'm like, all right, so and so, you calm down now. You want to talk to me? Be like, yeah, man, I want to talk to you. I'm like, all right, what's going on, man? It's like, if you calm down and you start working with us, you can come out of those cuffs, man. I told you you're not under arrest. That is a de-escalation tactic, and I like to use it a lot when it first starts popping off too, because it doesn't lead to any type of physical altercation or anything like that. It's just better for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I like any of that stuff. Using it as de-escalation and stuff like that.
Now, if somebody has, say, a sidearm visibly, like
an open carry,
and they fit that description, now this is where the whole, I feel, search and seizure. Do you take that
Yes.
from them?
Yes. Now this is it's an officer safety issue. Okay. So in that situation, you are absolutely, depends on your state and your city you live in. In the area that we're in right now, you can absolutely open carry. No problems. You can walk around with an AR if you wanted to. I'm going to stop and talk to you. I'm like, why are you doing that? It's weird.
Would that count? Is there a right underneath this? Like, if someone's being suspicious, does that grant you any right, or is that just their right to be suspicious?
It's a right to be suspicious.
Okay, I didn't know if that if there was a line there or not.
I mean, there's some guys in town that walk around in like full kit. Not just like full kit, but like I've seen guys walking around in like full Russian uniforms.
I know exactly that guy you're talking about with all the pants. And stuff
Yeah.
He's never served either.
No, it's not American. It's not American stuff, so it's not It's not like false valor or anything. Stolen valor. Thank you. Yeah, it's not that. It's all Russian gear.
I see. There's like two of them. One of them is like in Russian gear, and the other one's in just some kind of camouflage or whatever. Maybe it's the same person. I don't know, but
just in case
they're always just
in the event someone's looking for him, they can just jump in like the bushes or something. He blends right in. Just disappears.
I don't know.
How did you see me?
Oh, jeez, they caught me. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. That's but like you said, there's no suspicion on that because at least where we're at, you have every right to open carry.
You have every right to open carry. It's odd behavior if you're walking around with an AR. So I'm gonna stop and talk to you. I'm like, hey, what are you doing? Walking around. Oh, all right.
I like this gun. This gun makes me safe. Makes me feel safe.
It's good. That's a good way to strike up a conversation with somebody. Talk to them about the weapon. Oh, what kind is it? Whatever. Try to get it unloaded when you're talking to them, just because it's an officer safety thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, but other than that, there's nothing much I can do. You're allowed. That's your Second Amendment right. I can't do anything about that. But
if that's kind of, I don't want to say unique to here, but only certain states allow that. At least open.
Yeah, you have to look
like,
at your you have to look at your state law about that. In our state, you're allowed to open carry anywhere that's not a first class city. There's only one first class city. It's in the east.
Yeah, everybody knows where that one is. Yeah. But I imagine that also applies to other states too, because I can think of a couple examples of that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
New York's a horrible place.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
So what would classify then so that would all classify as unreasonable seizure. It's like if someone's doing that, you can't do anything. So
yeah, that would be an unreasonable. And it'd be an So this is what I was getting at. People don't realize it encompasses as you're walking around. I cannot stop you from going about your business at all unless I have reasonable suspicion that criminal activity is afoot. So if you're just walking down the street minding your own business, I can't be like, hey, stop right there, I want to talk to you.
So what if there was like a bunch of people meeting on the street corner, kind of looking around suspiciously, trading things back and forth that you can't see?
Now what you're doing is you're articulating reasonable suspicion.
Okay, because I personally witnessed that happen twice on two adjacent street corners at the same time with a cop in front of me that drove right past it didn't even stop. Where it was very clearly something suspicious going on. Like, well, I guess my eyes partially work then or something.
See, I understand what you're saying. You see that,
Yeah.
but you don't know what that cop's doing.
No.
That cop might be on his way to a call because we don't run every call with lights and sirens either. So certain calls we just drive there normally. It's not every call's in a life or death emergency. And this is usually the only time we run lights and sirens.
I mean, that makes sense. Yeah.
Or he might be trailing a car trying to do a traffic stop on
There
somebody.
was nothing.
He might be,
that was definitely not that particular instance.
but there's a lot of things going on. He might be on the phone with his chief, and his chief's telling him he messed a report up, and just didn't catch that. There's a lot of stuff that we're doing in the cars that people don't realize that we're doing.
Normal people can't drive with their cell phones. You guys have
we have computer systems in our car.
Got a whole computer over there.
what do you do when you're driving under at 60 miles an hour?
Playing solitaire.
I was gonna say playing RuneScape, but that's...
Well, I gotta check my Facebook.
Panther, do you have a computer in your car?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Do you actually have solitaire on it?
No, there's no solitaire on it. We have
Palm.
what's called an MDT.
Oh god.
It's mobile. I can't remember what it stands for, but what it is basically where we can look up information on you once we get your ID, or I can run your plate.
Right.
So if your plate comes back expired or suspended, I can do a traffic stop on you. It's basically just for information.
Big customer.
I can actually
Guarantee
my
it,
computer that we just got. I can actually write citations off it now instead of handwriting them.
Okay.
I can scan your ID and it fills my citation out, and it'll print it off in the car. I can do my reports in the car.
Ooh.
I don't have to because I'm the type of person that hates sitting at the station. I hate it. I can't stand it. It drives me nuts. I feel like I'm gonna get in trouble. So the fact that I can do all my stuff in the car now is just perfect. So a lot of times, state police or anybody, you see an officer just sitting there and you're like, crap, I'm doing 85 and it's 60. And you just look at him, and he doesn't pull out. He's probably on his computer doing a goddamn report.
Go to look at my email.
Yeah, you can look at your emails. We're actually allowed to text and drive too.
Oh.
Yeah,
I
for
heard
official business.
that.
We're allowed
Why
to
is
use
that?
Official business.
Just, information, I imagine.
Wonder what I'm having for dinner.
Even if you're texting your significant other or something, you can.
It's official.
Official business.
Official. Okay, all right,
Official business.
all right.
Well, the thing is, they choose to tell you what's going on. You get a special phone?
No.
Okay, so you use your personal phone
Yeah.
for all. Okay, I didn't know.
I actually get the calls that I go on get texted to my phone.
Okay, I didn't know if that was.
It's probably dependent on.
I was just gonna.
Depends
I
on
was
the
just gonna say that. I imagine that certain.
Bigger departments will give you a work phone.
That's right. With that all
It's
depends
just
on
it's
budget.
just like with private companies. I get a stipend for my phone
Yeah.
Yeah.
instead
I
of a
could
company
get a
phone.
company policy.
Yeah.
I'm guessing state police get a work phone then probably.
Yeah, state police get a work phone.
That wouldn't surprise me.
We seem to be
County police get
going a
a
little
work
bit
phone
off track here
for
but,
the county south of us.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
They get a work phone. Detectives
You're
usually get
a
a work
guest on
phone.
this one.
makes
You must have not listened to the other ones. So you always go off
it depends
track
on
and come back.
Because that's a lot of people. People call 911 and just want an officer to call them back. And
Right.
since I don't have a work phone, I have to drive my happy ass all the way back to the station to give them a call because I messed up one time and called somebody off my personal phone. And when I filed charges on him, he started calling me like, "Hey, why did I get charged in the mail?" I'm like, "Look, block this number."
Oh no!
This isn't customer service.
I think Star 67.
Yeah.
that still works, right?
Yeah, it still works.
Of course, it still works.
Easy peasy.
I just, I don't even want to mess with that anymore. I just go to the station, use their station.
Oh, well, there you
Yep.
go.
That's the way.
So I mean,
That's
now
what I did in the army.
I mean, now that you can look at some of the things that make it reasonable and unreasonable. I think getting into case law would probably be the next step to go from there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
reviewing some cases would definitely tie all this together.
The biggest one for reasonable suspicion, and the case law that established the reasonable suspicion standard would be Graham versus Connor.
So we can pull that up here as soon as this decides to track right. And then there it is. Yeah. So this was 1989. So it says this was argued, decided. Yeah. So
I can just give you a lowdown.
See, I'm not going to read through this entire
Yeah, I'll give you a lowdown on what
synopsis.
the case law is. So, one guy is diabetic, and he's going into a diabetic attack. And diabetic attacks usually, they get very angry, and they get adrenaline dump and they get very strong. So the defendant tried to go into a convenience store to get a sugary drink to help with his diabetic attack. Line was very long. Him and his buddy who was driving him decided to go away. Right after they left, two people fit the description, robbed that convenience store.
Oh.
So the cops stop him on his way to another convenience store. He wanted orange juice. That was like one thing that, see, there's orange juice. Wanted orange juice. Cops stop him. He's being very erratic, violent towards the officer because he's having a diabetic attack. So, officer ends up using physical force on him. I can't remember when he's tased. It's saying multiple injuries. I know he didn't die.
It says applying a 4-factor test for determining when excessive force of use gives rise to a cause of action. So it doesn't really say.
Yeah, it doesn't say what he did sustain a lot of injuries because he fought with the officer. Another officer. Here's the big thing about fighting with police officers. Okay, you might beat me up. You might be able to beat my partner up, but there's 3 or 4 other guys coming down, and we're all going to get you in handcuffs. That's what's going to happen. This is basically what happened with this case. They start tussling with one officer, another officer jumps in, they get into a big fight. Graham sustains multiple injuries to it, sues the police officer. But what the judge decided is those two fit the description of somebody who just robbed a convenience store, and that officer was well within his rights to stop them, detain them, talk to them, and when he started attacking the officer, he was in his right to use force against them. So that's what the reasonable standard. It's the reasonable standard is what it's called.
Well, see, even listening to that story, I mean, I'm not saying it's not terrible what happened to the guy that was in a diabetic attack. Yeah. It's just an unfortunate set of circumstances. But looking at what the police had to go through,
it's called the totality of the circumstances.
I've heard that phrase before, and I mean, I just like, what are you victim of circumstance at that point?
Yeah, that's exactly what
it is. So, at the wrong time.
Totality of the circumstances of this case shows you that the officer was within his rights to act the way he did, just because of what was going on. Another Antoine Rose is a very good example of that as well. Not only do you have to take the circumstances of his case, you have to take circumstances of another case that happened a few months prior where an officer was shot.
Do you want to elaborate on the prior case first?
Yeah. So an officer in the area conducted a traffic stop on 2 individuals. One bolted. The officer took off after him. And when he caught up to him, he actually grabbed a hold of him. The suspect turned around, shot the officer in the stomach. The officer ended up losing his life. Fast forward, I think it was 6 months. Antoine Rose's case happens. He's involved in a drive-by shooting. The officer gets behind him, identifies the bullet holes in the car, back windshields, blasted out, immediately tries to do a felony stop on the car. Antoine Rose bolts. Same type of situation, right? Just happened to another officer in the area. The officer, I think he moved towards Antoine. I know he didn't run after him. He says Antoine turned around, had something in his hand. The officer shot him.
No, that other previous officer that got shot, was that the same day?
No, a few months prior.
Okay, I didn't know if it was like, oh yeah, there's a report, this officer just got shot, this thing, and it happened like immediately back to back. I didn't. Okay.
But it was in a small time frame, to where that was in the back of people's
wounds still fresh. Yeah.
In officers' minds, especially in that situation to where Antoine was involved in a drive-by shooting. So we know there's a gun involved. You know, so it's easy to Monday night quarterback somebody when you're not in that situation. Do I think he could have went about it differently? Absolutely. But there's another case law that covers fleeing felons. It's Tennessee versus Garner. That's another thing to talk about as well, is the Fourth Amendment. When we talk about seizure, we're talking about seizure your time, your personal property. You're talking about seizing your life.
Time counts as seizure?
Yeah, that's why I can't stop you randomly.
Without probable cause, like you're speeding down the road
without reasonable suspicion.
Right.
So I caught you going 200 and like a 35.
You're losing your license, losing your car.
Well, first off, I want to know what car you're driving 200 in, so GTR. I can get it.
Build up GT, an even more build up GTR.
Dragster. Buddy, where'd you find that? Hey, you got a license for that?
Yeah, but you're saying Tennessee versus Gardner.
Right.
Yeah, Tennessee versus Gardner is a fleeing felon case. Gardner was the officer. I can't remember the defendant's name. So what had happened was, suspect breaks into a police officer's house, steals some stuff. Cops are called. Garner, I believe, is the officer in the backyard. So whenever you cover a house, somebody takes the front door, you take the back door in case somebody squirts out the back. That's exactly what the case happens. They know this is an off-duty officer's house. He has weapons in the house. Ooh. The guy squirts out the back, immediately tries to jump the fence. Officer shoots him in the back of the head.
Yeah, it says right there, 6 foot high chain link fence, the edge of the yard.
Yeah, officer shoots. I think he only shot once and shot him right in the back of the head, killed him. They found that this case was unlawful. That shooting a fleeing felon. So what they found is you cannot shoot a fleeing felon unless he presents immediate danger to yourself or other people.
So like if he robbed a house and was running like towards a bunch of other houses.
Yeah. The biggest thing in this case is it's an off-duty officer's house. He has weapons in the house. They don't know if they took a weapon from the house. So therefore, he presents an immediate danger to the public. Antoine Rose was just involved in a drive-by shooting. Obviously a danger to the immediate public. So this is the case that the courts went off of when deciding Antoine Rose's case. On top of the other officer getting killed a few months earlier.
Right. So they ruled it against the officer in this case.
Yes, I believe so.
Justice,
might want to read that and confirm that.
Justice White delivered the opinion of the court.
Probably near the bottom.
Yeah, I'm gonna say we're gonna.
Right, I just saw we conclude right at the top there. We conclude that such force may not be used unless necessary to prevent the escape in the officer has probable cause to believe that the suspect poses a significant threat of death or serious physical injury to the officer or others.
So in this particular case, since the officer didn't know because it was dark out, right? It was at night.
Yeah.
Right. So if it's it says right there 10:45 p.m. So how does that? So the officer can't clearly tell if they have something. Doesn't that? So where does that line for probable cause happen? That's a tricky.
Well,
that's really great. Yeah.
Because they knew it was an off-duty officer's house.
So
they knew that there were firearms in the house.
So that must have been the deciding factor. Exactly. It was off duty. Yeah. But if the officer was on duty, it probably would have been the other way, right? I mean, hard to say.
Hard to say because they know that if he was on duty, his off-duty weapon might be in the house, and if he's off duty, both of his off-duty and his service weapon will be in the house. So it depends on.
Yeah, it goes back to the real gray. That's the whole reason I'm even asked that. I twitch.
I know some places, at least with like defending your home, just in that aspect, a lot of the time, at least whenever I was growing up, I was told that you couldn't, if they were walking up the stairs or something like that, you couldn't shoot. Like my parents couldn't shoot someone walking up the stairs towards towards the kids' room. I'm not sure how true that was, but
so
I was always
what
told.
It is you have to retreat to the furthest room in your house, and if they continue to that room and you feel that your life is in danger, you can fire. But if, say in the middle of the night, you hear the window crack, you hear a bunch of rustling around in your living room, you grab your gun, you downstairs, and you scream hey, and they take off,
you can't shoot them. Yeah.
Now if you scream hey, they turn around and you shoot them, and they don't have anything on you, that's a bad move for you.
Yeah.
Now, if you go down there and they have weapons, even a knife, you can shoot. Yeah.
It could be a brick in their hand for anything.
At least
the biggest thing
that you would believe that your life could be.
Life needs to be. You need to feel that your life is in danger.
Yeah. And you have to be able to prove that your life is in danger.
That's the thing you need to be able to. You need to prove.
Like you can't just say he had a. You can't just say he had a gun, but there was no gun around for him to have.
Blackbeard, do you have a little bit of a funny story you'd like to elaborate on?
Yeah.
It's actually really, really funny that we were recording tonight and this happened on your way to work this morning. So yeah, go ahead. Let's hear this one.
Okay, so I was getting ready to leave for work. Mind you, I leave for work at night. It was about 11 o'clock. I go walking outside and I turn to my right to walk towards my car. And for whatever reason, I looked off to my left and I see two gentlemen in my mother's car. And I just reacted. I was like, "You MFers, I'm going to get you." And I just go running.
She said.
Can confirm.
I'm trying to keep it PC.
PG.
So I just
All right.
so I just started running.
So yeah,
So running G'day.
well, the thing about it was, if they were just around the car, I probably wouldn't have chased them the whole way down the street.
Right.
But they had successfully entered the car and were looting it, or in the process of looting it. So I chased these punks down the street all the way into the wood line. Now, I
gotta interrupt, but normal people will say stop or I'll shoot.
in my or
Stop so I can shoot you.
in my defense, I said, "I'm gonna shoot you. Freeze!" So I can see where that's really kind of. I acted on.
A little bit instinct.
Yeah, instincts kicked in.
Instinct and anger. Continue.
Yeah, instinct and anger. I should have flopped those phrases. Freeze, or I'm gonna shoot you. And I chase these punks all the way to the wood line. They duck down in the woods. Mind you, I live on a top of a mountain pretty much. So I'm not going to go trancing around through the woods with a firearm in my hand in the pitch black dark. It's just not a safe thing. So I let them go. And I called the police. Well, Panther called the police. And I proceeded to be angry.
Then we could all
Scream at the top of his lungs for an hour.
And as a result of the events last night, my voice is gone, as you can tell.
Brought the nods, we started chasing them through the woods.
Today, I actually did track over the hill, and I did find out where they went down over the hill. They went down over the hill past this Girl Scout camp. So now I know if there was a possible vehicle involved, like getaway vehicle, I know where they're going next time.
I don't think they'll come back to me.
I think
They probably shit their pants all the way back to their mommy's house.
I was really hoping you're like, yeah, I saw the path and there was a sudden drop off and a giant like dent in the ground. That's kind of hoping that story would go. One guy was
There's
still
a
laying
body
there.
down there. Shame. What a shame.
Oh man, you took a fall. Oh man.
Karma.
Yeah, instant karma.
You know, that circle of life, it comes all the way around.
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, that went pretty far off the side.
So,
yeah.
to get back to the main point of the story,
I wanted to talk about the Patriot Act and what that entails. So before we get into the Patriot Act, I want to talk a little bit about how your data goes across the internet. So basically, anything that you do on the internet can be tracked, can be every little piece, like a photo, for instance. Whenever you take a photo and you send it somewhere, that photo is not just the photo. The photo has potentially the location the photo was taken, who took, like what account on what phone took the photo, and a whole slew of other stuff that can be traced back to you as an individual. And a lot.
Not even just you as an individual. It tracks you back to the phone, where the phone was when the picture was taken, and who you sent it to. So, like, your exact location when you received or sent that. It's called pinging your tower.
Well, there's a lot of metadata attached to those packets.
Everything. And that's not just... that's like posts on social media, that's pictures you send, that's comments you make on a YouTube video or something like that.
Galaxy phones, too, by default, have geotagging pictures enabled.
Yeah.
So, like, right out of the bat,
Apple
most
does that, too.
Yeah. I haven't had an iPhone for years, but it's like, I know right out the bat, you know, like you were saying, like, the phone automatically geotags things. Yeah. A lot of people don't even know about.
Well, there are settings that you can turn off to prevent that.
But the other stuff you can't.
Yeah, there are ways around it. But the reason I talk about this is because large companies like Google and Facebook, YouTube, they can all use this data to basically build a profile on you. So they build this profile, and it could have everything from where you live to like your normal spending habits to your like all of this, basically everything about you. They know everything about you just based on the content that you watch on YouTube or the stuff you buy on Amazon, all that stuff. So where the Patriot Act goes into that is that Apple, or the Patriot Act basically enables, it enabled mass surveillance of people based on the threat of terrorism.
It's down from 9/11.
Yeah. And at the time, I mean, again, with these very well-named bills, no one's going to oppose the Patriot Act. We're Americans. We're all patriots.
It's not even, the name of the bill is the time the bill was passed is everybody was in fear of terrorism.
It was 9/11 just happened.
9/11. 9/11 just happened. The attacks in France just happened. Like, it was a huge deal at the time. So everybody's building off of fear. It's just
and then you name it the Patriot Act. Everybody's like, oh yeah, of course I want to jump on to support that.
Yeah, it's only for terrorists.
Yeah, it's only for searching terrorists. But what actually happened was there are some statistics that basically 1 in every 6 phone calls were recorded by the FBI or stuff like that, and that's where the jokes come in from my FBI agent. So,
I was just about to say we should just wave to the FBI right now.
Yeah. And that's also one of the things that I don't know if you know Edward Snowden, who he leaked classified information to the American people, basically saying, hey, the government is spying on you. And because of that, he was a whistleblower of sorts, and he was forced to flee to Russia. And I mean, there's things to get into whenever talking about leaking classified information, because that can cause issue to soldiers and stuff like that. But
you're saying that the whole reason behind that was the Patriot Act itself. Yeah,
the reasoning behind it, he had good intentions.
Yeah,
and that's, I can't remember the name of the other guy that.
And that gets into that area that we could sit and probably have an entire podcast on the intentions of that. But we're talking about just the explicit nature of the Patriot Act.
Well, I mean, Snowden still exists. Like, he still talks regularly.
Oh, yeah.
He's
very active,
He hasn't been Hillary Clinton yet.
Oh, well, there went demonetization.
Anyways, his thing is, he sounds, at least from what I've heard from him, he sounds genuine. Like, he had good intentions in mind. But that being said, in 2016, Apple was basically asked by the U.S. government to build a backdoor exclusively for the government into Apple phones, which again is another violation. It, to me, is a serious violation of your privacy. And
you want to get into the event that led them to want to do that?
Sure.
Yeah, let's definitely do that one.
Because we'll start to see a trend. The big event happens, people become willing to give up constitutional rights. and then the government just takes full advantage of it, just like the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
The Patriot Act is the government completely abusing some people's fears, because the Patriot Act is absolutely against
The Fourth Amendment. Yeah,
it's exactly what the Fourth Amendment stated. And the biggest example we can get into this is if you watch any type of documentary, how we took down the mob in New York, was with wiretapping. It was the 70s? I think it was 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
But if there's the mob, wouldn't there be probable cause to do something like that?
No, so, yeah, that's what I was going to get into, is how they got that.
Yeah.
How they got the wiretap warrants. They had to apply for a warrant, and then went for a wiretap warrant to tap somebody's phone. You have to explicitly show that all of your other leads are exhausted. You have no other way to get further evidence on this person to build your case. So you have to show that you cannot send CIs into this place anymore. So the mob bosses, they're just like Bin Laden, dude. They use a bunch of messengers to get their stuff out, and they were far away from everything. So they showed the courts, they applied for a search warrant, showed the courts the probable cause that they wanted wiretaps on so-and-so's phone because of these reasons. They stated the reasons in there, what's called an affidavit, and the court granted them. And they caught their conversations. Yeah, you like that in the middle of my sentence? They caught their conversations about criminal activity and racketeering and extortion and murder, everything on the phone. And they had to go through such an extent.
Yeah, to get that.
That information. And then the Patriot Act comes in and just blows. Like, there's no court order for that.
No, and they even explicitly, whenever I was doing a little bit of research on the Patriot Act, it said that it made getting wiretapping basically extremely easy.
Extremely easy.
And again, goes back to the joke of the FBI guy living in your phone.
And the basic things that your FBI agent looks for your conversations is terror, kill, murder, stuff.
Keywords.
Keyword phrases to where they might listen into a conversation here or there any day of the week, just because you sent a meme or something.
And then,
you get flagged, and then all of a sudden there's an FBI agent looking into your phone.
And then they're requesting, FBI, or the FBI, then whenever they believe something's wrong, you're doing something bad, then they can just ask Google for all of your metadata on everything that you've searched and everything that you've looked into or bought in the last year or however long they want, and can, your entire life is on their piece of paper, and they can get that from one or two companies, which I think is completely insane. Not only that, but to these companies, you are the product. They sell your information to advertisers, advertisers use their platforms and your information to advertise their products to you.
I'd like to give an example of that. Has anyone, I'm sure all of you have Googled some kind of product you're looking to buy, and then the next day
all of a sudden on Facebook,
you're scrolling through your feed or whatever, and then you see an ad.
Conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
The one
that happens.
The one you're talking about with where you're searching, that just goes through cookies most of the time.
Yeah.
That type of thing. But the one you're talking where it's in person, you're talking about, I want to buy this, and then the next day it shows up. That's always really creeping me out.
There is actually a guy on YouTube that did a video on that. And he was talking about dog food.
That's just what I was gonna bring up.
It's that exact example. Actually, he was talking. He just was literally sitting in his computer. And he's like, "All right, I'm gonna start talking about dog food and dog food brands." And then he waited 5 minutes, and he just did a Google search, and then went on a random site, and then he saw an ad for dog food.
That cannot
it is
possibly.
disgusting.
It is, because
it's real. I promise.
No,
Yeah,
real.
it
Yes, I know for a fact it happens.
thing.
I've had it happen several
Google
times.
is always, if you have a voice-enabled phone, Google is always listening. It is always listening. That's one of the things that I've been doing recently. Is I've basically stopped using any and all Google products aside from my phone, which is a Pixel. But Pixel has a cool. There's this operating system that's built off Linux that you can. It can only get loaded onto Pixel phones. but it basically wipes the Google Android off of there and puts on a very much more secure version. There's also other things you can do, like using Mozilla Firefox in there or Tor browser that
Brave.
That have built-in security stuff.
I'm a DuckDuckGo browser choice
Yeah, I
guy
use
as well.
DuckDuckGo.
Yeah.
I know. I still use Google. I don't care.
I
I have nothing to hide.
because I'm in IT, it's something that
Yeah.
I care about, and especially security and getting into that stuff.
There was a meme I saw. It was like technology enthusiasts buy all have the Alexa, the smart house, and everything, and then there's the IT people that have like barely a toaster.
Yeah.
And they keep it next to them in case it starts talking.
Yeah.
Printer from like 1984.
Well, it's because you
still runs off parallel cable or something.
Yeah.
I'm burdened with knowledge.
Skynet's online.
Yeah. But I mean, that's just it's crazy how much information they can get from you, and how easily it is.
What blew my mind, because I didn't have a Facebook for years. I only recently joined it a few years ago, and as soon as I joined it, like people I haven't talked to for years upon years, I lost their numbers in my phone. Popped up, people you may know your ex-girlfriend. I'm like, nope. You know, like how did you know that? Like I know this person.
Yeah.
Like it's nuts. That absolutely blew my mind.
Well, there's an algorithm that Facebook
It also
specifically
does like
has for that.
proximity too, because of
Yeah.
the geotagging. Like if you're around someone, they'll pop up in your. Like if you
people
go
you
to
know.
if you go to a party or whatever, and you're around a bunch of people, they have their phones, and again, it's Facebook. You don't even have to have the apps open for this stuff to happen.
That's why, like, I went through location services on my phone.
Oh, yeah,
and
it's all
purposely
shut off.
disabled basically everything.
Yeah, that's what I try to do too.
And
That's more offset reasons.
Yeah. And there are alternatives too. Like everyone, if you wanted to get into a lifestyle of more personal security especially on the internet, there's basically a secure version of everything that you would normally use. So like if you use Google Maps, Google obviously saves that information. But there's an app that you can get offline maps that basically you download the maps that you want to use for your area, and then it's still GPS you, because GPS is separate from.
You know what's bad? My Google Maps on my phone is starting to pin the spots where I run speed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like,
So
it's
actually,
like starting to favorite it. I'm
something
like, man.
something to piggyback off of that is if you have a newer car that has a CarPlay radio or Android Auto, if you have an Android phone, I don't know if Android Auto does this, but I can definitely confirm that CarPlay does, is that it actually learns and predicts your daily driving habits.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like I'll get in my car in the morning and turn on my
it'll
car, plug my
pop
phone,
up
and it says
43 minutes to work.
it says work 8 minutes, or like if I leave work, it says oh, you're going to your girlfriend's house 15 minutes away. It knows.
That is terrifying.
No.
Yeah.
That is not
Okay,
good.
okay, wait.
Yeah.
Your car that's here right now?
Yeah.
All right, we're taking screwdrivers. Sorry. Yeah, hopefully your phone's loud enough to be a radio. We're going to permanently disable it.
Wow.
But
it's
it's terrifying.
And again, I don't know if Android Auto has this as a feature as well, but it exists in CarPlay.
My car doesn't even have Bluetooth. It still does it. I
Yeah.
can hook it. I hook it to charge and everything, and I play my music through.
Like
that.
your
It's
Apple
still-
Maps comes up, it predicts where
predicts,
you're going
yeah.
to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
It tells me my
Yeah.
car's parked 3 miles away.
Oh boy.
Which
does do that.
Google does that too. Google will be like, "Hey, your car is parked over
Somewhere
there."
else.
Yeah.
How does it know that? My phone's not even connected to my car.
Because
doesn't matter.
your speed of your phone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
Your
a
speed of your phone is
accelerometer.
stopped.
Oh
GPS
my
stuff.
god.
Yeah.
And that's what
Wow.
I'm saying.
That's right.
They know
There's more
they
to
know
modern
how
technology.
often you speed.
Yeah.
It's
There's more to modern technology than a lot of
Yeah.
people may think,
Yeah.
which is scary. It's scary
It's very
to
scary.
think about.
It's very scary how little people know
Yeah.
about it and how little people care.
Yeah.
And I see this because like last time we talked about the Second Amendment, I see this just as another arm of securing yourself.
Yeah.
And see, the thing is, like, there's a grand conspiracy here because I think you're trying to hide this stuff. Just a lot of people don't care.
Yeah,
That's what it is. They don't hide it at all.
Yeah.
And there's no conspiracy. I mean, it's pretty
Amazon's
out
the
in
biggest
open.
one. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, you bought this, and throw it on the Facebook, and you just see it everywhere.
Share this or
Yeah.
there's and these algorithms basically can almost make you think certain ways too, because especially on Facebook and
Targeted marketing. Yeah,
stuff,
that's influence marketing. That is not only just something that happens. There's entire like college degree paths for influence marketing.
Yeah,
and that's been that way before the internet.
Yeah, and if for instance, if you like right wing stuff, they might market. I don't know, base level, they might market like guns or stuff to you. Or if you're a left wing, then
a great example of that's not internet based.
Molotov cocktails.
That's a great example.
Antifa flags.
Is when you're a great example of this that's not internet based. When you're at the supermarket, just think about what's in the checkout line. Oh, look, all the little candy bars, all the little
like
things,
quick
things
grab,
that you can just pick up. They're like. A lot of those, like, food centers, or drinks. Where you're sitting there like, oh man, I just walked through. I'm a bit hungry now from walking into the store. Oh, I'm a little thirsty. And they have it right there.
They call it impulse buying.
Impulse buying is the result of that type of marketing.
Absolutely,
and that is literally what like Facebook and stuff is built on. Is these impulse markets, these little hits of dopamine here and there that will keep you scrolling, that will keep them getting ad revenue and all of that. Like,
and I know, like I did this. I performed my own little experiment. I turned my phone off, and I was talking with a buddy of mine, and we were talking about Jeeps. Turned my phone back on, literally scrolled through Facebook for about, 30 seconds. Jeep ads, Jeep parts. Even when your phone is air quotations off, it's on.
It's in standby.
It's listening.
I get a lot of targeted ads for like Ram trucks because people that I work with, 2 guys that I work with, just recently bought brand new Ram trucks, and they talk about them a lot.
Yeah,
just because I'm in proximity, I get picked up for targeted ads.
That is why I'd be getting
a
new Pixel, and I'm putting graphene on it, and I won't have to worry about that because I don't. That's not something that I'm cool with.
To get back onto the Fourth Amendment topic.
That is part of
we kind of
But
well, that's all part of like the
potential for
in the right to privacy of information.
Right.
But see, the thing is that doesn't violate the Fourth Amendment because by you signing up for
you agree to the terms and conditions.
Well,
that's the
technically
5,000 pages. If it's
because Facebook still, you don't even have to have an account on Facebook, and Facebook gathers information on you.
See, now that should be illegal.
It should be, absolutely, but it's just how the way that these algorithms work is you don't have to have an account, or you don't have to have. It's the same way like you use Google search engine, so they take stuff, or Google they give information to other groups or all that stuff.
But then that gets into the thing. It's like the because you're using their service. They have terms to use the service that you just intrinsically agree to.
But
I don't agree with
that.
it.
I know for a fact that Facebook gathers information on people that do not use Facebook, that do not have accounts.
But if are they on Facebook in one way or another? Like, do they open a Facebook link?
Not necessarily. Because if you actually like on my Mozilla, it tells me there's third-party scripts basically on every website that you go to, and it tells you where these third-party scripts are from. So if I were to go to, we'll say PSA, there are Google third-party scripts on there.
For the ads.
There are Facebook third-party scripts on there that you had no bit. I wasn't going to PSA to look on Facebook, but these things that basically you go into the website, you click on stuff, and that information is sent back to whoever's requesting it, basically.
Which I don't agree with. I don't agree with the morality of that. But when that applied that, you use PSA's site, and by extension, the ad space that PSA sells, which is underneath the social contract of you using the site, so it makes it legal.
Yeah, but you don't necessarily know that.
Doesn't matter.
It's not blatantly obvious to the user that, hey, your information is going, because you go on this site, you are now accepting, like, technically it doesn't even ask you at all. It says,
could it fall under the part of like when you go to a website and it says, hey, we use cookies for tracking?
I mean, yeah, I guess.
Could that?
I guess, but you can
blindly click accept.
But I don't think I think it's too much power for individual organizations to have basically a file on every single person to ever exist.
I think there's a lot wrong with that. And like I said, I wasn't arguing for their case. I'm just trying to figure out where the where it's
allowed.
Where they figure out that doing something like that's allowed.
Where's the line?
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I was trying to figure out, because I think it's completely wrong. I'd like to totally not exist online if possible, but no, with our world we can't really. There's no realistic way to do that. That's the problem, Especially like in my situation, to having so many different things with different companies and stuff like that. I mean, we use so much stuff with the internet because we just have to. You can't possibly drive around as much and source things locally. It's just impossible.
So to tie this 30-minute tangent we went on about tech to the 4A primarily, I think we should talk about the 2015 San Bernardino attack.
That's what you were going to. That's what
that's where we were going to originally go to.
No, that's what we were talking about with the Patriot Act, because all of this, basically all of this information that tech can get, can easily be obtained by the government.
Right, but do we want to talk about the case though itself,
This
so that
Apple
people
case
understand
specifically about the phone.
I mean, I'm not entirely well versed on the actual case. I know.
So from what I remember for this case, basically there was a terrorist attack in San Bernardino, and this is the part where I don't remember exactly, but what I do recall is that they were trying to get information off of the one suspect's phone, and to do that, because of the way that that Apple programs their products, Apple had to basically give the government a backdoor into it.
Yeah, but Apple
wouldn't. They refused to do
Apple
that.
did refuse to do that,
which was a good thing.
Yeah, they did recognize that that's a level of privacy that shouldn't be overstepped.
Yeah, but they're again going into classified stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if the FBI can do it, then I mean the FBI can do it.
In reality, they have a way to just break 256-bit encryption.
Well, no, I don't.
Second.
Well, I think that there is a possibility. I mean, this is complete conspiracy, but I think there's a possibility that they have built that stuff into it and do sell or give information to the government when asked, whenever they want it.
You see that the efficacy of doing something like that's pretty.
It's basically Big Brother.
Oh,
if we
boy.
want to
Yeah, absolutely.
be honest, but with that, I think we should.
Well, we were going to discuss body cams too. If there was anything there with the Fourth Amendment.
So, not really on the body cameras. If you can't enter somebody's premises. But here's the thing: if you're allowed, they allow you, they give you consent, you have a search warrant, anything like that to enter the premises. My body camera is allowed to be on.
See, I know that was a talking point, 1 and 2.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people that are against it. There's a lot of people for it, and a lot of people that are for it think they're going to catch police doing bad things. I'm actually for them because not only does it give me sufficient evidence, I can actually go back and watch my body camera footage when I'm doing my reports. So if I'm mistaken on a statement that a witness gave me or a suspect gave me, I can go back and watch the footage and be like, okay, that's what he said.
That's why I'm pro body cams, because it gives you unbiased information. Because
Unbiased
just a direct feed.
It helps you do your job better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, so what it boils down to is I think the question Blackbeard had was, if I'm entering somebody's home or searching somebody's car, does that violate their Fourth Amendment right there? And the answer to that is it depends. If I'm invited into their home, then no. They gave me consent to enter their home. They gave me consent to have my body camera on.
And with your effects, too.
Correct. Same with a search warrant. If I have a search warrant in your home, I'm coming in with my body camera on. Because that's going to catch everything perfectly. So instead of just me or saying, hey, this is where this was at, the body camera catches it on perfectly. Blatantly shows where it's at. So I'm a big proprietor for body cameras. So order officers aren't. They worry about cussing and the way we do business, like, because what we have officer discretion on a lot of things. Like, if you ever got out of a speeding ticket, that's officer discretion. If you ever got a speeding ticket, that's still officer discretion. So a lot of people feel that body cameras take that away from officers, because now we're on camera all the time, and so our admin people can punish us because I stopped you for doing a certain amount over the speed limit. Now, why didn't you cite them? Why didn't you cite them? Why didn't you do this? So they're worried about them punishment aspects coming back from the body cameras.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. But as far as the Fourth Amendment goes, it's just
Yeah. I don't think it really
no.
pertains.
Yeah, I actually knew that was a point that was brought up, so I was just following up on that.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good place to call it.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add.
I'm good.
What about fruit of the poisonous tree?
Fruits of the poisonous tree, yes. That's a big thing. So, in the Fourth Amendment states, I can't remember the exact verbiage in the Fourth Amendment to where without a warrant that specifically states what you're searching and what you're seizing. So, whenever we do search warrants, I have to specifically say where I'm searching and what I'm searching for. So, an example I gave Blackbeard the other day was there's a lot of things that go into getting a search warrant in the first place. We can get into Breonna Taylor's case after that if you want, because that's a perfect thing about search warrants and no-knock warrants and stuff like that. But initially, what you're going to do is you're going to have a confidential informant. You're going to flip somebody to have them tell you that this person's doing something bad, right? So now you start gathering information on this person. You start stopping cars that are coming from their house. You start putting surveillance on their house. You're sending that CIA in to do buys for you. And you're gathering all this information. And what you're doing is building your case. You're building your probable cause. Your informant's going to tell you where this stuff is and where they keep it. So in your search warrant, you're going to say, hey, the stuff that I'm looking for is in so-and-so room. At this address, and this is where I need to search. So whenever you go into the premises, you have to go to that room. Now you can search the premises for people for officer safety reasons. And now there's a plain view doctrine as well. So if you immediately walk in the door and there's contraband right on the table, that's not fruits of the poisonous tree. But if you go into that room that you go to search, you don't find anything. And all of a sudden, say you go into the bathroom, you find needles and rubber bands and stuff for tourniquets and spoons and drug paraphernalia and stuff like that. That's what's considered fruits of the poisonous tree. Because your search warrant didn't state the bathroom, it stated this room, right? So you just now violated somebody's Fourth Amendment right because you went into the wrong room and found this stuff. You can't use any of that evidence at all. So normally whenever you're doing a search warrant on a house for drugs, you're searching the entire house. But the other thing for search for people for officer safety is you can do a sweep around the house to make sure nobody's hiding in the closet is going to come out and shoot you randomly.
Yeah.
So you have to stay. I open the closet door to make sure nobody's in there sitting, and then I found this, right? I can't be going searching through drawers saying I'm looking for people because that doesn't make sense.
Right.
So when you're doing a search warrant on a house, you usually just everything within the premises, the house, the curtilage of the house. The curtilage of the house is your property line. So let's say you have your house and you have a shed that's like 30 feet behind your house. That encompasses your Fourth Amendment right. I can't just walk onto your property and search your shed. That is part of your home. Now your trash, once it's next to your house, I can't go through it. Once it's on the street for pickup, that's public property I can go through. So that's what the curtilage is. So your Fourth Amendment right constitutes all of that. And that's stuff that they probably did, that people do, especially like FBI agents when they're doing like bigger cases. They go through people's trash because it's public property. But if you guys want to talk about the Breonna Taylor case, that's a huge thing on search warrants. Anybody else know about? Did anybody else read the transcripts on that?
No,
I didn't.
No, I'm just aware. I'm just aware of like the overall what happened with the case, not the actual transcripts or anything.
Panther, would you like to elaborate on Breonna Taylor's case a little bit?
Yeah. So this is a big media foul up too. So what happened with Breonna Taylor is law enforcement executed a search warrant on her house. Some people say they had the wrong address, which isn't true. Executed the search warrant on their house. It was a no-knock warrant, which is very rare to get. You have to prove a lot of things. That time is of the essence to get this evidence, and that if you knock and announce is how you normally do a search warrant, that evidence is going to be destroyed. You have to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. So They do a no-knock warrant on Breonna Taylor's house. If you read the transcripts, Breonna Taylor is actually an accomplice.
No, that's what I thought. Just looking objectively at the situation, that the way I understood it was that her boyfriend or a fiance or whatever was the one that was actually doing the perpetrating the crime, and because she was there, that she was an accomplice just by kind of like how you said if you go in a room and there's contraband.
Guilty of association.
Yeah, that's what I looked at.
That's not even that minuscule, honestly. But so let's go with the media reported, right? So what they say is that law enforcement did a no-knock warrant on her house. Her boyfriend opens fire on him. She gets shot in a crossfire. If that was true, terrible outcome, right? Absolutely. That's terrible foul up on law enforcement's part. If you read the transcripts, is they had an arrest warrant for another person and her boyfriend. They got them. While her boyfriend was in prison, you have no rights in prison, first off. So all your conversations in prison are recorded. They had recordings of him talking to Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor was talking about drug drops, talking about meeting a supplier, and doing pickups off that supply.
So she was actively an accomplice.
She was an active accomplice in
well, not even an accomplice, a perpetrator at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he gets released on bail. The law enforcement did not hit the wrong house. They were after her boyfriend. They had a search warrant for the house for the drugs that he was supposed to pick off of so-and-so. Hit the house. Boyfriend opens fire because he didn't want to go back to jail. Breonna Taylor got caught in the crossfire. That's why the officers were found not guilty. But everybody's up in arms because they didn't want to read the transcripts of what actually happened. Read the search warrants. The search warrants are public record once they're served.
Yeah, apparently they knocked too. I don't know how true
They
that
did
is.
actually knock.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what
It wasn't a no-knock warrant. It was. They got a no-knock warrant, but they still knocked and announced.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah.
That's my conclusion to that story.
Well, they even gave him the courtesy to knock,
When they didn't have to.
Yeah, when they didn't have to.
Well, so there you go. That's a reasonable search under the Fourth Amendment.
Yes.
I mean,
And there's a lot of things that, like I
there's
said
a ton
earlier,
of examples you could just keep. You could just keep going on finding more and more examples of this, especially with like different crimes and stuff like that. This is directly related to it. So.
Yeah, I think this is a good place to wrap it up. We covered enough on the Third Amendment, of course. That was pretty simple to go over, but also there's a ton of examples for the Fourth that we could keep going
talking,
about.
yeah.
I'm actually surprised that we had more to talk about with the Third than we initially thought that we did.
Yeah, I actually thought it was just going to be, hey, this is what it is, here it is, and then we actually, like you said, there's a whole, almost 20 minutes out of that stuff.
Yeah.
the important thing to end with is just how much thought went into these amendments when they were being drafted, and how they still apply to us today. It's crazy.
Nothing short
That's
of
right.
amazing, yeah.
Absolutely right.
It's timeless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still will be.
That was the point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it, too. That was the point for it. But, like I said, I think that's a good place to wrap up, yeah.
Good thing to name drop the show on here to watch about any type of case law and our court system and Fourth Amendment and everything will be John Adams' HBO series. Very good to watch about this stuff.
Well, there you go. It's your homework.
All right, well, on that note, thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you next week.